Ever wonder how to get the most out of your day, how to constantly be leveling up as a real estate agent? I wondered the same thing. My whole prerogative changed when I started listening to podcasts, turned off the country music radio station, and started diving in. And as I went from showing to listing to inspection to, agent meeting, whatever it was, I tuned into these podcasts, and they absolutely helped me change my entire life, from my health to my, goals, to my ambitions, to my family life. All of it was changed because I started really dialing in and working on myself as I moved around taking care of all my clients. What's up, guys? Coach Kane, Real Estate Agent Playbook. Love these podcasts that I'm going to share today. Listening to podcasts, not only while I'm driving, but sometimes while I'm working out and doing everything, always having my mind completely engaged and, towards the future and building, into the person I want to be every single day, absolutely was a game changer for me. So I'm excited to share these 5 of my favorite podcasts with you for real estate agents. I think they apply pretty significantly to your business, and I'd be happy to chat with you about them anytime. I also now have created a podcast. I think that's the best one for real estate agents. If you're listening on the podcast, please leave me a review. If you're not and you've only watched the YouTube videos, please check out On The Go on any podcast platform, the Real Estate Agent Playbook. Be happy to have you over there too. Please share it with any of your favorite real estate agents, as we're looking to grow that community as well as we go. Okay, so the first podcast that I absolutely, dove into and, binge listened, as you will, was Real AF by Andy Frisella. The honest truth is the language is a little bit tough if you have kiddos and things like that. However, if you can't get past the language, you are missing out on so much information. As he kind of states, his mantra, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion, completely carried out in all formats of his podcast. He is obviously an ultra successful entrepreneur. I also completed 75 Hard. Andy Frisella, you might recognize the name. He did create 75 Hard. I went all the way through the Live Hard program. Absolutely changed my life. However, the podcast was the driving force behind that, got me into it. That's where he explains it. That's where he launches it. But his entire podcast is based around personal excellence and getting better, whether it's, understanding what's going on in our world today and not, taking all the bullshit that's going on and, letting that affect your life, continuing to level up, continuing to have your eyes wide open as things change so quickly. Andy Frisella, Real AF podcast absolutely was number one A still listen to it 2, 3, 4 times a week, but absolutely a game changer when it comes to mindset and personal excellence in any field, but especially the real estate industry, in my opinion. Next, after we're moving on from Real AF, Andy's partner in Arte Syndicate, which I also happen to be a part of as a result of watching and listening to these podcasts, is the Mylett Show. Ed's a totally different approach. Until recently, he was just doing interviews, does great interviews with super amazing people, some that you've heard about, some that you haven't, but brings light and definitely has a special way about interviewing people and to motivate and encourage people. And Ed, obviously a brilliant business mind in multiple businesses, but just recently added more like personal development stuff, some of the stuff, and similar to what he talks about on the Arte Syndicate calls, he's added little shorter podcasts where he's solo, not interviewing people. And these are game changers as well. And Ed is, like I said, a completely different charisma, different approach, but absolutely dialed in, game changing, personal development, mindset, coach, speaker, everything. So check out the Ed Mylett Show. Absolutely the next podcast that I really started, getting into and put into my weekly podcast listening routine. After Ed, we're gonna switch over to my good friend John Shookman and current business partner John Shookman recently joined the Wolfpack with me. John has a wonderful podcast called the Real Estate Survival Guide. This is obviously much more real estate specific. John is a top producer out of Lancaster, PA, and John just has a heart to serve, right? If there was one podcast that I kind of developed my plan after, it is the Real Estate Survival Guide. I have the Real Estate Agent Playbook, very similar. We're both, very caring and driven to help agents succeed. We feel like we've both come into this industry and had such great success. And to be honest, it hasn't been like extremely hard or stressful for us. So we just want to help other agents succeed. We want to help those agents that feel like they're failing or just need a little bit of support that they can do it. And John absolutely was the guiding light to starting my podcast. He's helped me, he's mentored me through that piece. And now we partner together at the eXp Wolfpack, which is absolutely amazing. And John just does a great job. It's more relatable. It's, boots on the ground, what's going on. And he's very transparent about everything in his business, which sometimes helps where, you have these multimillionaire, billionaire people with Ed and Andy previously mentioned, are we able to reach that? Right? As real estate agents, John is talking about, production stories and testimonials and things and ups and downs in the real estate industry. And it's absolutely key for any agent to take a listen to the Real Estate Survival Guide. Absolutely. The next one comes a little bit, upper echelon. Again, The Mind of George. Podcast, George Bryant. I've talked about it on this podcast before. As George does a masterful job of detailing the client journey, and starting as a paleo food blogger, and his marketing prowess and all of that comes into play. But his tagline, relationship speed algorithms, and his client journey content as he goes through it and the way he dissects it is absolutely a must listen for any real estate agent who looks to build, referral business and build those relationships that are lifelong and, absolutely the opposite of transactional, which is how you really scale the business. The Mind of George podcast is a must listen. George Bryant happens to be my mentor, Mike Sherrard's coach, and the things that Mike has brought back to us from his experiences with George, listening to him speak at a mastermind, all the way now to being personally coached by him, to George coming on our private mastermind calls that are offered to our group at the Wolfpack. If you're interested in having access to those, definitely follow this link here, RE Agent Wolfpack, and I'd be happy to talk to you about what our record-breaking group is doing differently. But listening to George kind of break that down is absolutely amazing. He does a great job on his podcast, released on Mondays and Fridays. Make this the next must listen to for real estate agents in the list. And the fifth podcast is called the Not for Lazy Marketers podcast by Emily Hirsch. I was originally introduced to Emily on George's podcast. Emily does a masterful job about talking about offers and funnels and the true brains behind a marketing operation. She has her own marketing firm. Absolutely great content in here talking about your live launches and offers and all the things that we have and we offer through our content, and the things that we do to give back and pull people in and start giving value and show our value. She does an excellent job of talking through it. She also offers a ton of services through her marketing firm, if you're interested, but she does an absolutely great job of talking about the modern kind of marketing aspects and really detailed, right? She doesn't go off a lot. She doesn't have a ton of guests. She's just dialed in every single day, understanding, okay, these are the steps, right? In marketing, it's a step-by-step formula that you must follow. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you have to change your offer. Sometimes you have to change the wrapping paper. And she does a great job breaking down that entire process in a dynamic world that we live in. And this one is, very marketing specific, and it's just different. It hits different. Maybe it's because she's the other ones are led by males, and just that change of pace. Something about her delivery and the way that she talks about marketing is first a passion, but also a heart to serve is absolutely amazing. And so I call it Drive Time U, right? I absolutely pour into that education every single day, listen to things, think through things. And, truly when I'm listening to these podcasts, I'm getting different content ideas and I'm typing them in my phone, telling Siri to put them in my notes, whatever I need to do. But these podcasts really did change and made me maximize my drive time, because as an agent serving, a pretty large spectrum in the Denver and the Front Range, I have the time to do these things. And so these podcasts are absolutely a part of my everyday, life. And the truth is all of these podcasts are very consistent, right? 2 or 3 times a week in most cases for all of these people, with well over 300, 400 episodes across all of these podcasts. You have plenty to catch up on, plenty to listen to if you haven't listened. I will link all of them below in the show notes, in the comments on YouTube. As always, I hope this helped. I just think that these 5 podcasts are really specific to our real estate industry and can be implemented pretty much directly with the teachings and the learnings that you have from these podcasts. So I hope you listen to them all, give them a shout. Let me know what you think, comment below. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share this podcast with your favorite real estate agent, and I promise I'll be better for it. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.